I'm on the platform at Coombe Junction halt, and only a couple of trains in each direction between Liskeard and Looe call here between Mondays and Saturdays. There's no services at all on a Sunday. And the reason so few trains call here is because of the curving loop line that was installed in 1901, just a little bit further up the track from here, so that when trains come down over the hill from Liskeard, they stop at the ground frame where the points are then adjusted, and the train then continues on its way to Looe without coming into the platform. I'm going to pop down and see the loop line in operation. These days, the majority of services that operate along the Looe branch line stop just short of the platform at Coombe Junction, where the points are adjusted before the train continues its journey either along the line to Looe or up the hill to Liskeard. But the story begins much earlier, back in 1860. A railway was introduced between Moorswater and Looe as early as 1860, carrying freight traffic. Passenger services began on the line in 1879, but Coombe was the terminus of the line for passengers who wished to connect with the Great Western Main Line at Liskeard, and that involved quite a climb up a really steep hill. All that changed though with a local engineer, Joseph Thomas, who came up with the idea of introducing a curving link line here at Coombe, which is just short of Coombe Junction halt platform. And that involves the train coming down the hill from Liskeard to here, where the points are then changed, and the train then goes forward on the other line to Looe. So that connected Looe with the Great Western Main Line at Liskeard for the very first time in 1901, and it transformed the fortunes not only of the line itself but also as Looe as a holiday destination. This is the view from Coombe Junction looking down towards Coombe Junction halt station, and in the background is Landrest Overbridge, and the track continues beyond the bridge to Moorswater. The railway from Moorswater to Looe was officially opened by the Liskeard and Looe Railway on the 27th of December 1860. There were cheers from the many spectators who waved off the very first train of 12 open trucks carrying copper and granite. Back in those days, this standalone railway had no link to the main line at Liskeard, and given the large height difference between the main line at Liskeard and the valley, it's a 200-foot drop down to here. This would be neither cheap nor easy to achieve. As a compromise, James Temple was appointed to convey goods between Liskeard Station and Moorswater, for which he was paid the sum of 2 shillings and 6pence per journey. With the introduction of passenger services on the line for the first time in 1879, passengers had to walk up and down a very steep hill in order to connect with the Great Western Main Line at Liskeard, and all requests for a subsidised bus service came to nothing. This was the station at Moorswater that was used by passengers from 1879, but a platform was established at Coombe around 1896, giving passengers a shorter walk to the mainline station at Liskeard, although they still had to negotiate that very steep hill. It took the ingenuity of a local engineer, Joseph Thomas, to finally make progress on creating a link between the Moorswater to Looe line and the GWR main line at Liskeard. He originally came up with the idea of taking the line up the valley to Liskeard with a substantial viaduct entering the GWR station, but this was too expensive. His idea was to create a horseshoe curve which would cross under the main line, descending steeply and eventually turning 360 degrees to reach the original Looe line at Coombe Junction. The curving loop line was to change everything, enabling passengers to travel directly from Liskeard to Looe for the very first time, and passenger numbers tripled overnight. It takes about 2.5 minutes for the train to come down over the hill from Liskeard, and this is GWR Sprinter number 150247 on its way to the Coombe Junction curve, and having just passed the curve the train will stop whilst the points are adjusted before the train will move forward on the line towards Looe. Having passed through the curve, the train stops again, whilst the train guard resets the points back in the direction of Liskeard. The points are always reset in the direction of Liskeard to Moorswater because that remained the default route for the line, even though no trains have run beyond Coombe Junction Halt Station down to Moorswater since the cement works closed in November 2020. Even though no trains have run down to Moorswater for several years, the line has never been officially closed. It's been mothballed. Here's the same train on its return journey from Looe to Liskeard. The train will stop just before the junction in order for the guard to disembark and head across to the ground frame in order to reset the points in the direction of Looe. The operation of the Looe Valley line is divided into 3 sections, and each section is worked by a different method. The section from Liskeard to Coombe is worked by a no-signaller token, and the token machine is located in a hut on Liskeard Platform 3, and it's used each time a train arrives or departs on the line to Coombe. The train driver very kindly showed me the system that's in use on the line, with the single line token system on the left of the picture here being used for the section between Liskeard and Coombe, with the one train staff system on the right of the picture being used for the section from Coombe to Looe. But both devices are required to control access to the points at Coombe Junction via the ground frame, and this manoeuvre is performed by the train guard. In May 1901 there was great celebrations in Looe to mark the extension of the railway to Liskeard, and the new section of the line up the steep hill meant that Looe was at last connected with the Cornish main line and the outside world. I do remember reading a story though that people crowded into Looe from as far afield as Plymouth to join in the festivities, but on the last train home events took an unexpected turn as the locomotive broke down on the ascent back up to Liskeard, and staff from the Liskeard and Looe Railway had to employ a second locomotive to get passengers up the hill. This is ground frame number 1, which controls access to the points here at Coombe Junction. But there's also a second ground frame which is just to the south of the platform at Coombe Junction Halt Station, which controls access to the points on the branch to Moorswater. But this hasn't been in use since the cement works closed down and the line was mothballed. There is a vehicle crossing point just to the south of the curving loop line, and the lane leads to a number of outlying farms and also to a care home at Coombe House. There were quite a number of vehicles using this crossing while I was here filming this video, and on each occasion the driver has to stop their vehicle and telephone the signaller up at Liskeard signal box to confirm that it's safe to take their vehicle across the track. There was originally a signal box at Coombe Junction. It was opened in 1901, closing 80 years later in 1981, and contained a 26-lever Saxby and Farmer duplex frame. Well, what a difference 12 months has made, because when I last visited Coombe Junction back in June 2024, I couldn't see the track bed because it was covered with grass and other vegetation growing through the rails, particularly looking west from Coombe Junction Halt towards Moorswater. Well, fast forward 12 months to June 2025 and much of the grass and other vegetation has been removed from the track bed. The whole area is looking much better. And that includes the disused section looking west towards Moorswater. The Looe branch line is very popular, and usage or patronage on the line has grown considerably in the 21st century, rising from around 68,000 passengers at the turn of the millennium, and in just 15 years grew to 131,000 by 2015. But the line very nearly closed back in the 1960s. The whole line was earmarked for closure as part of Dr. Richard Beeching's restructuring of Britain's railways back in the mid-1960s. Despite mounting opposition, a date was set for closure of the line on the 5th of October 1966. But the story was to have a happy ending when the Secretary of State for Transport, Barbara Castle, announced just 2 weeks ahead of the scheduled closure that the line was being saved, due mainly to the difficulty of providing a satisfactory alternative bus service. There are many charming branch lines in Devon and Cornwall, and one of the most scenic must be this 8¾ mile Looe Valley line, which I first travelled on. I think I would have been about 10 years old at the time, and I remember being so captivated and mystified by the manoeuvre that the train made back at Coombe Junction. By far the majority of passengers who travel the Looe Valley line travel directly between Liskeard and Looe, but before ending this video I just wanted to mention the 3 charming little country stations that sit between Coombe Junction and Looe, each of which has its own personal charm and identity. Heading south from Coombe Junction through heavily wooded countryside, the line runs alongside the East Looe River before reaching the first of 3 request stops, the first of which is the quaintly named St Keyne Wishing Well Halt. The station here was opened in October 1902, which was about a year after the Coombe Junction curve was opened, and this would have been the final of the intermediate stations on the Looe Valley line that we see today. It's a very modest yet charming country station, and it attracts in the region of about 1,500 passengers every year. The Holy Well is about a mile's walk from the station up a very steep hill, and the Victorians believed the legend of St Keyne that the well had the reputation of conferring supremacy to the marriage partner who first tasted its waters. Like Coombe Junction, this station also had the suffix halt added to its station name in 2008, making the 2 stations on the Looe Valley line the only stations on the UK rail network with the term halt in their station name. From St Keyne, the line was built in part on the course of the former Liskeard and Looe Union Canal through to the next station on the line, which also happens to be the oldest station, at Causeland. The station is nestled at the bottom of the Looe Valley, and it's very secluded, and in the hour or so that I spent here I only heard a few cars passing by on the lane outside, and the station attracts around 1,800 passengers a year. Causeland Station was opened in 1879 when trains ran between Moorswater and Looe, but it closed a couple of years later when neighbouring Sandplace Station was opened, only to reopen itself 7 years later in 1888. Rounding off this trio of charming country stations is Sandplace, which opened in December 1881 and serves the nearby hamlet of the same name, and it attracts about 1,000 passengers every year. The name comes from a wharf that existed at one time called Sandplace, where sea sand was stored in readiness for its use in soil improvement. These 3 stations on the Looe Valley line are charming, and they're in idyllic surroundings. And one of the things that caught my eye was that the totems and the other signage were all finished in keeping with the old Great Western Railway, both in colour and in style. For the final couple of miles beyond Sandplace, the train runs alongside the tidal Looe River with these beautiful views. It's along this scenic stretch of the line that many of the best photographs of the Liskeard to Looe branch have been taken over the years. The train continues to rumble over its last mile of track to its truncated terminus on the water's edge at Looe, which is a few hundred yards upstream of the ancient bridge that links the twin townships of East and West Looe. Back when the railway first opened between Moorswater and Looe, the railway ran all the way down to the quayside at Looe, where transshipments were made to and from coastal vessels, but the route down to the quay has long since disappeared. At least we still have the Looe Valley line, which is more or less intact, and the future bodes well, with increasing numbers of passengers taking this delightful journey between Liskeard and Looe, all of which has been made possible by the curving loop line at Coombe Junction. A journey on the Looe branch is to take a step back to an old-fashioned railway experience. The train itself may be modern, but the old branch line atmosphere lives on.